But I think like over time, like I said, it really helped me to grow a lot. Like right now in high school, like I'm doing the pre-IB program, which is a little bit more difficult. And I do find myself like thinking back on all the stuff I've learned at Richland and really like applying it here. So I think that for me has been a huge help.
I'm Agnes Stowicki, Managing Editor with Our Kids. We're speaking with insiders from Canada's leading private and independent schools to bring you insights into school programs, culture, traditions, and leadership. This includes insights from parents, alumni, and administration. This is the Our Kids Insider Perspective.
Well, one of my favorite things about the school was like how much they emphasized on like work habits. Like it wasn't just about, memorizing or just like repetitive work. Like they really cared about how you learned how to study. Like we had after school, you could choose voluntarily to stay on until 4 o'clock and basically like study or do homework with the teacher's guidance. And I feel like that was a big help. It really helped you develop that study habit. And they also really encourage you to use things like agendas and whatnot just to like get yourself organized, which I feel like it was really helpful for high school because I had that habit of doing it already. Like I didn't have to learn how to do it once I got into high school. And I also liked how like community focused it was. Like, you really got to build strong relationships with the people around you. Then you got to build very strong relationships with your teachers too. Like they'd be willing to listen to you, sit down and discuss your goals and whatnot. Um, at the end of like every semester, I believe it was, our teacher would sit down with us and talk about our learning goals, which grades we intend to like improve on, and what our plans were for like high school and whatnot. So it was really helpful, I think. And also they did a lot of global outreach, I think. Like I remember in my year, we were working with a charity group called 360 Kids in Richmond Hill. For Christmas, we were buying a person that put down a wish list, some Christmas gifts to help them. And I think that was like a really good initiative. And it also, I think, helped us understand other people's challenges, made us more empathetic. So that was pretty good for me. I really like that. Well, one other thing for me that stood out was like, again, how like good the teachers were. Like, I mean, in all the schools, like the school I'm in right now, for example, the teachers are supportive, but like I felt it originally really went the extra mile. Like some of my teachers, I've like they've agreed to be job references for me, give me recommendations for volunteering, which I found like really helpful. And like I said, they sit down and talk about your goals, and also the fact that they really respected your voice as well. Like in my school, we'd have a lot of things like petitions to change things in the school community, and the teachers would actually like sit down with us, talk it over, help us make decisions on that. Like it wasn't just them telling us what to do when we would do it, and I really appreciated that. Well, I think if the school was a person, it would kind of be similar to like a good friend, I would think. Like obviously, very friendly, very caring, but also very motivating. Like, it would really push you to do better, to try new things, to step out of your comfort zone. So just like a good friend. And I think also, like I said before, caring, like it'd be the type of person that would sit down with you, talk about things like your mental health, what your goals are. So overall, just a very supportive person. A little bit of a smaller class size. Like everyone ends up getting really close, really bonding with one another. And like I mentioned before, if you're in the school, then you really have a voice in how things go. So, you'll be doing a lot of petitions to change the school. You'll be working together on community outreach, planning events and whatnot. So it's, you really come together because of that. And um also like for me, I kind of noticed like overall the environment really encourages you to be friends with people, like you can come in being totally new. Like for me, when I joined, I didn't know anyone. I just moved from Mississauga, which is pretty far. And people almost instantly like came and really tried to be my friend. There was a lot of like time to warm up to people, a lot of encouragement. The school trips too, they like really bring you together. So I think people really connect with one another like that. One thing I mentioned, like that global citizenship idea, like going out and helping other people. And it doesn't even have to be like, a really big thing. Like even in our own school, things like how can we cut down on our use of like energy? How can we be more environmentally friendly? Like even those small steps. And aside from that, like I mentioned, also like working hard, like that's valued almost as much as just like the letter grade. Like how hard you work is valued a lot. And I think that also kind of shows through because no one would be like sitting in class like disrupting anyone else. We'd all be like trying to work hard and do our best. So I think that's pretty important. And also, like I mentioned before, really being a good friend, like a lot of my friends that I have now are people I met there and like we're still close 2 years later. So I think like that's a very strong value, like the relationships you build. I mean, I've heard a lot of people be surprised about when I talk. It's like how close like all the staff are to the students. Like, I mean, I know a lot of times the principal, for example, is seen as someone very intimidating or like you don't really want to be called down to their office per se. But I know in like Richland specifically, like the principal is very friendly, like the administrative staff would all sit down with us whenever we bring up a petition. Like I do remember we all worked together to try and get lunch periods to go off the property and the teachers would all sit down and like help us draft that, really come up with a solid idea. And additionally, like, they, like I said, they would write letters of recommendation for you if you want to volunteer anywhere, be your job reference. I think that's like, something that not a lot of schools have, but I think it's really great. Well, I think like the school, like I mentioned, there's a lot of emphasis on like voice and standing up for causes. And I know when I joined personally, I was very introverted. I didn't really like to talk to people. This kind of like pushed me out of my comfort zone to try and talk more, start forming my own individual opinions too. Like there was a lot of emphasis on like what do you think, not just what the teachers think. And I think for me that's a big help. Like currently my like long-term plan is to go to law school, be a lawyer. And I think like this school had a really big part in helping me realize that that's what I enjoyed. The only thing that comes to mind for me is there wasn't that much emphasis, I think, on like sports and stuff. Like we didn't really have all that many sports teams. It wasn't very like taken all that seriously, I think. Like we would occasionally participate in tournaments, but even then, like it wasn't really emphasized on, like there weren't that many opportunities. And I think I might have liked to like have a bit more of that. Like it does sound like it would be like really fun thing to experience, especially in middle school where it's not like as, high pressure. I do remember when I first started at Richland, like I said, I didn't know anyone, I was completely new. And I remember like being really intimidated because I knew some people in the school had been there since they were in pre-K or JK, and I couldn't really imagine that. So I was really worried I wouldn't fit in, but like I said, I ended up making some really good friends. I think at first, like I was pretty surprised by how like, understanding the teachers were, and also like how, like we were encouraged to like really step out of our comfort zone and talk a lot. Like for me, I'm very introverted, so that was really difficult for me. But I think like over time, like I said, it really helped me to grow a lot. Like right now in high school, like I'm doing the pre-IB program, which is a little bit more difficult. And I do find myself like thinking back on all the stuff I've learned at Richland and really like applying it here. So I think that for me has been a huge help. I think the first would be that, the curriculum we learn is very relevant. Like you really end up learning a lot about current issues, current events. There's a lot of like really relevant things, not just memorizing out of a book. You're really like trying to apply that knowledge. Like how can you take action based on what you've learned? Um, I think also, like I mentioned before, a lot of that emphasis on the work habits, like using an agenda, taking time to like not just study, but learn how to study effectively for yourself. And also your goals. Like the teachers will reach out to you and like you have to really think, like put some effort into coming up with a goal for yourself. You can't just make it up, And like I said, the extremely dedicated teachers that really take that extra time for you, that they really go that extra mile. I think like that's a really big help. And like I don't think you'd really find that relationship with teachers anywhere else. Like it's such a huge help for me personally. Well, I'd say the school like, gives you a really strong foundation to build on later on, like in high school. And it really like prepares you for life too. You're not just like I said, memorizing or studying out of a textbook. You're trying to like apply your knowledge and help other people. So there's a lot of that global citizenship that they would talk about a lot. And I think that can be really helpful for anyone. Like we really need that these days. And that empathy too that it really like, helps you to build. And also I'd say that the teachers here, like they are, like I said, very motivated, dedicated, and they'll be able to help you outside of school too. Like I said, I've used some of my teachers as job references, volunteer letter recommendations. They reached out to my high school to give me recommendation as well. So I think, if you're looking for someone with really dedicated teachers, then this is probably the right place. I would say use like your time to really learn and build that strong foundation. Like don't emphasize too much just on your grades, but also on how you learn and really learning about yourself too. Like what are your strengths? What do you like? And also I would say build strong relationships. Like this is a really good place to build those lasting friendships. Like I said, I'm still very close with my friends from there. So I think it's a really good place to really develop yourself as an overall person, not just your grades or just book learning.
For more information about this school, you can visit their profile at ourkids.net.